In the last year, God has been teaching me about how friendships have different seasons and like how to transition. He's also been teaching me about having your inner circle, and that would be like the people that you give the most access to, the people that are the closest to you. And so, what do you do when you have, a best friend that you've had for a long time, and slowly she just moved out of your, not just your inner circle, but like your outer circles too. How do you end friendship? How do you end that season well when you're in similar circles? You have some of the same mutual friends, but you know that God has called me out of that season.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So, just a clarifying question. Does this other person, like, was there any breakup or anything like that, or it just kind of naturally has unfolded?
It started naturally unfolding, but there was a conversation that happened.
Okay. And when the conversation happened, like, was there contention, or?
She understood, and she respected, like, for me to take the time that I needed.
Yeah.
The last words that we said were like, I know God calls us to reconciliate, but at this time, like, I just need more time.
Okay. All right. So there was an issue that kind of breached the friendship too, is what you're saying. Not just like, okay, maybe this person isn't the person. I'm asking that clarifying question because I think we've all had friendships that we have people in our inner circle, and then just like naturally over time. So like when I was 22, I got married. We had our baby at 22. We had these friends that we spent every Friday night with. Like we would order pizza, put our kids in pack and plays, like besties for the resties. But then, over time, I mean, I ended up moving to Memphis for a while. She moved to Virginia, and like naturally we just stopped talking on the phone as much. And, it just sort of unfolded that way. If I see her, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you. It's so good to see you. Like there's no breach in the friendship, but I mean, I don't know anything about her life anymore except for what I see on social media. So we have those natural things that move out of our inner circle. But what you're talking about is also an act of obedience, because you're saying the Lord kind of showed you like, oh, this person doesn't need to be, in my inner circle anymore. And there was a little bit of, you've had some conversation around it. Yeah. What do you think?
What do I think? Well, based on my own experience looking back in life, I mean, yeah, it can be difficult, especially if you're still having to interact within the same type of circles and you're still doing life together by proximity, even though you might not be hanging out as much, but because you're still maybe a part of the same group at church or whatever, in your job, whatever the case might be, you're still having to cross paths. There's nothing wrong with setting your boundaries. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We do outgrow people because maybe, and it doesn't mean that we're better than other people, but maybe we're putting the work in that the other person isn't putting in particularly. I don't know exactly your situation, but I know I'm looking back in my own life that there's some, because maybe we're going to therapy or we're really seeking God about a certain situation or we're doing some inner healing or, whatever it might be, you do move along the path of life at a different rate than maybe your friend or other people. And so there's nothing wrong with separating yourself a bit, if that makes sense, like in putting a boundary in, because you're not the same person you were. I know I'm not the same person I was even a year ago.
Right.
We move, we pivot, we change, our values can even change or sharpen, or and so maybe this person, while in one season in your life represented the same values that you had during that season, because you are growing and moving, and again, it doesn't make you better than this other person, But yeah, I mean, you're not the same person. So maybe this person has chosen to stay the same, so to speak, but you have changed. And new people maybe have come into your life that you realize, oh, these people actually align with my values more than this person does. And so it's a part of life. It is difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. But learning to rest and be okay that I think you spoke about this earlier, maybe in a different episode or something, but learning to rest and be okay that not everybody's going to like you. And, or they're not going to maybe like the boundaries that you put in place. Learning to rest in that and be okay with that, because you know your ultimate goal is not to be rude or mean or not to be polite to this person if you do have to interact with this person, but it's sticking to your values in this new season that you're in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like a follow-up question would be, so through this, now I I used to be like someone that gave access to everyone. And so now, as I'm learning, like now I know that there are seasons in friendships. And so, what was my question?
Like, how do you not give access to the people
everyone.
without being hurtful, maybe, or
That, and like, how do you know when a season not necessarily ends, but it's okay to be just it's okay that you don't give everyone access to everyone. What do transitions look like, or what do different seasons look like? Like, you can always come back. You never know what God has for you,
right?
in another season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say, talking about seasons, sometimes you've outgrown someone and you kind of go your own ways. You never know what the Lord will do in her life while he's working on you to bring you back together at a later time. Just about 8 years ago, I had a really good friend, and some things happened. I didn't, it's been a while, so I didn't really talk to her. We didn't talk through what happened. We just kind of went our own ways, and it was fine. We weren't in the same circles, so I haven't seen her. And organically, I ran into her days ago. And I really felt like it was the Lord that brought us back together. And so you just never know how that's, like you're saying, how it's going to come back around 8 years from now,
Yeah.
So being open
to
to the seasons. I think too, in transitions, when I'm asking myself about transitions, obviously I'm cautious in that, because I don't want to operate out of, let me say this differently. I can tend to be very decisive. And so I can tend to be like, oh, peace out, we're done. And I don't want to operate from a place that is hurtful. So I want to love well, because I want to, mirror my creator who loves well, right? And so I'm like, okay, how can I love them well? Well, it took me a long time to realize that boundaries actually are love. And so y'all are going to hear me say that. How many times do you think you've heard me say that? 5 million times. I'm like, boundaries are love, because if I'm going to be in a relationship with you and it's going to be fruitful for us, and I'm going to be kind and love you, then there has to be a boundary. Well, I happen to be in a season where your circles matter, and who has access to you matters. What we've gone through in this last year, I've just had to be like, okay, it's been interesting to kind of, watch people float in and out. But I kind of feel like people, in addition to you choosing your circle, people choose the part they want to play in your life. And I think the best wisdom I've ever received was someone basically said, I'm going to say it my way, the way I've been saying it, is like, you're the star of your life. You just are. You're not being prideful to say that, but you're the main character, right? And so you're on stage, and people choose their seats. And so if you're going to go see a show, and you're going to get front row seats, and you're going to get front row access, you're going to pay a price for that, right? It's not the same price as someone up here in the balcony. And so when it's intermission time, who are they paying attention to? Who got backstage passes? Who did that? That's who has access to that character. The people in the balcony, it doesn't mean that they don't like you. I mean, they're at your show. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that they don't want to see what's going on, but they're not going to have the same access to you as the people here. But you're also paying a price. So you are front row for those core 3 people in your life. And that comes with sacrifice. That comes with, if I'm your person and you're my person, it can't always be about you. It can't always be about me, right? It's like this give and take. And so I think that's when the transition is happening, is like, this isn't working this way right now. And I'm not being, ugly when I say that, but I'm just kind of seeing that I'm still this person's front row, but they're not so much my front row. And if you've had conversations, so I'm always about communication.
Yep.
I want the opportunity to apologize. Julie is my inner circle. Okay. She is my inner. And if I hurt her and she doesn't tell me and I have no idea that I've done it, that's not us being each other's inner circle. You see what I'm saying? Because I don't want to hurt her. Like, the desire of my heart is not to harm her. So the desire of your heart is not to harm those people in your circle, right? So we got to communicate through those things. If that's happened, but it's still going that way, that's a cue. It's transition, and this season is over. Sometimes you got to have a conversation about it after that. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes because they're making that choice at the same time, What do you do also, though, when someone wants to be in your inner circle and you recognize it's not a good fit, for whatever reason? And maybe, I'm just going to speak bold, maybe you're like, I'm just not willing to sacrifice because there's only so much capacity that I have, and so I've got this much space. These are the people that I have done this with and cultivated, and here's this person, and I like you. You're really sweet, but we're not there, and there's only so much of me. So what do you do when that's the case? Because I think we have to be able to communicate that in love.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
That's a tough one. We've all heard, yeah, that's a tough one.
I'll
Way to go, Charity.
I'll
Way to go. That was a complete sentence for me. And I think
that's it. That's exactly it.
we are all different personalities. I'm similar to you in kind of like what you see is what you get. I'm just kind of out there, having a hard, tough conversation. I'm very comfortable in those realms. For some people, it's intimidating, and I understand that, and I want to be empathetic towards that. But looking back on my life, sitting down with someone that maybe used to be in your inner circle, but no longer, you're realizing, again, what I said earlier, your values are shifting, things, we change. And so sitting down and being upfront and being able to have a discussion with the person and just be like, and maybe you've done that, but something I have learned is I used to think that everybody, whether you was in my circle or outside of my circle or way over there, that everybody deserved an explanation. And the truth is, my inner circle deserves an explanation, but anybody that's outside, again, I don't have the time or the capacity to give everybody has an opinion anyway, and they're going to think what they want to think, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, but coming from a place of love, I used to think that, but if I love everybody and everybody deserves to know exactly what's going on in my life or why we made this decision or why I made that decision. And, but the truth is, no's a complete sentence, and it can sound really harsh, but I don't mean it that way. But what was the question? I forgot.
What do you do when they want to be? But I think it's because that's what I was looking for. Is no is a complete sentence. It really is. Yeah.
Nobody. Yeah. Not everyone deserves to, and when I say deserves, that's getting thrown around a lot lately, and I don't. It can have a whatever, like you deserve. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, not everyone, you don't have to give everyone an explanation. I'll say it that way. Yeah.
I think too, like I was in a situation, I've been in this situation a few times, where someone, like they genuinely love you and they want to hang out with you and all of that stuff. But our values are different, you know? And so I got pinned this first time. The person just started gossiping right away. And I was like, I was actually like mid in the conversation when I realized, like, wait a minute, we're gossiping. Okay, we need to stop this conversation. Because it was mean. It wasn't like, hey, I need your opinion on something. It was just like being mean about someone, you know? And I was like, ooh, that was kind of weird, you know?
Yeah.
And then the next time I'm in the situation, I'm like, okay, I feel like I want to give this person a chance because they're in my circle, like this kind of outer circle, you know? So I'm like, sure, I'll meet you for lunch. And we go to lunch. And I mean, it was like, do you know this about so-and-so? And can you believe? And I was like, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this conversation. Like I literally said, we got to stop this conversation. This is making me feel weird. And the person that we're talking about, I mean, this is just inappropriate for me to engage in this conversation. I am bold like that. You know, if something's making me uncomfortable, I'll say it. But fast forward, I didn't have one single situation with this person that they didn't try to go there.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of maybe had a little bitterness for a while where I was like, this person is always around and we're going there and I just don't like this person. That was kind of, you know, where I took it. And then I was like, you know what? I have addressed it now twice. Like I have addressed it both times. They don't deserve anything else. So now when they reach out, hey, can you guys come to dinner? Nope. We're not available. You know, and I'm not mean about it, but it removes me from feeling angsty. You know, like I have to fix this person. So now I don't feel like I have to give an explanation or any of that. I already kind of talked through it twice. And I feel like I have a clear conscience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, that's not it. So I'm not saying the person that you're even asking or the people that you're asking about are necessarily doing that. But to your point about values is you just go, okay, this is important to me, you know, and I only have so much. You're married, you have kids, you have responsibilities, you have commitments, you have friendships. If I only have so much, I need this people to be my people. I need to know that you're front row and I'm willing to be front row for you. And I need to know that our values align and I need to know that we're on this path together and that if the poop hits the fan, we're locking arms. And if that's not that person, then you get to love them from afar. You know, you get to go out to dinner, sit across from them and be like, tell me about your life and what's going on. That's awesome. You know, whatever parts they want to share.
Yeah. And
You know?
I think it's valid to say that when you set a boundary, a lot of times the people that you set the boundaries with, they're not going to maybe respond well. They might not like it. And they will sometimes test those boundaries because they're checking
Like
to
always.
see. Yeah. Like always.
Sometimes.
Sometimes they test your boundary, you know, and so they may keep pushing the boundary or like, oh, does this person really mean, you know, do they really mean what they say? So I'm going to test that. And, you know, it just depends on, I'm not saying that that's what these people or person is doing, but a lot of times in my life, when I set a boundary, there's always going to be those boundary pushers to just say, oh, well, does she really mean that? Is she really, you know? Yeah. So, do you know, I have a question for you. Do you know, as far as whoever, like in this scenario, does this person continue to try to come around or, and I'm just like, or when you set your boundaries, they're honoring the boundaries or they kind of pushing or they don't understand or like,
I think now she finally understands because I was getting like invitations
Sure.
to their kids' birthday parties. But I think at this point it's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it more like like an internal turmoil maybe that you're trying to deal with?
I kind of felt like lonely, you know, like alone on a lone island. So I wanted to see like, do other Christian women go through this? And this is all new to me because again, before I gave access to everyone, I loved everyone. Yes, let's go have coffee. It's like I didn't prioritize, you know, my marriage, my family, my kids. And now it's like, okay, it's, you know, God, my husband, my kids, and my close people.
Yeah.
See, I almost feel like that's a different question
It is.
in that.
Yeah.
No. We're digging it
Yeah,
out.
we're digging it
We're
now.
digging
Yeah,
it out
yeah.
because that I have a different answer for. You go, because I mean, if you...
No, go ahead. It is a different question. I'm glad you pointed it out.
is.
Yeah.
So when we give, to your point, I think you've learned this, but I think it's really good for the conversation that we're having. So when we give everyone access, no one gets the authentic us. So you can be in a room full of people with 100 people and be the loneliest person ever. And you have no idea why. So you think about people like right now, I'll give an example. The church as we know it is kind of falling apart. Like you're hearing about all these leaders falling, they're having affairs, or they are, whatever it is. I actually have so much empathy for them because what I recognize is they're standing up on stage. Everyone feels like they know them. They feel like they're being seen, right? Like, I mean, I'm up here every week. I'm talking and people are seeing me, but no one's in their inner circle. Those 3, those 4, having real authentic conversations, having deep conversations, having accountability, having all of that. And so they're so desperate to be seen and heard and escape that loneliness. They're turning to these other things. And we've done that as a group, but you can copy, paste right onto any situation. So if I'm in friendships with so many people, how can you really be real with all of those people, right? How can you really get down into the nitty gritty with them and have those deep conversations? You can't, because you're spread too thin and there's too much. And so when you close in that group and you're doing that with those people, you're authentically being seen. You're not lonely anymore, right? So it's not actually about the person causing you not to be lonely. Like, oh, these 3 are better for me. I'm not lonely when I'm with them. It's our ability to be authentically wholly and completely known. We want that so bad. Our creator made us that way, and he's the ultimate answer, but it's through community that we get a picture of that. And so I think even just answering that question too is almost separate. It's almost like we could cut that, piece, because as women, we have a tendency to do that. Like, I'll just give a little bit of myself away everywhere, and then it's so detrimental. It's like chipping pieces of our soul away,